Amen.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Sally, Kip Shanks is having difficulty getting in. Is there a way we can send him a different, just a phone number or something different, Joanna?
Yes. Yep, we'll send it to him.
I'll call you back and let him know.
Morning, this is Mark. Great. Hey, this is Rick Lemire. I see it's 9 o'clock. Do we have all of our members present?
This is Lisa. I'm here.
Harry's here.
Hey, Rick, this is Mark.
Webster here.
This is Mary.
How about Becky? Is she there? Does anyone know if Becky's going to be present?
Rick, we have not heard any different. We haven't heard from Becky.
Well, if it's okay with you, do you want to proceed with the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Let's get this meeting started. This is the Iowa Board of Corrections meeting for June 5th, 2020. And let's hope this is the last time we have to have a Zoom meeting for some time. Look forward to maybe meeting everyone next month at Fort Madison. But to start the meeting order off, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we have a first action item. What we have to do is approve the May 1st, 2020 minutes. And I'm asking for a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Mary. I move the approval of the minutes.
This is Larry. I second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. I'd like to remind everyone that our next board meeting will be July 10th, 2020 at the Iowa State Penitentiary in Fort Madison, Iowa. And I'm looking forward to meeting with everyone there. To start the meeting, we have welcoming comments by Kip Shanks, District Director.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry that we're not able to meet here in person. Seems like there's been a couple of times that we've been going to meet in the 4th District and it hasn't happened, but hopefully next year when we go around, you guys will be able to come and visit us here. What I thought I would just talk about briefly, which has kind of dominated everything that most of us have done in the last couple of months, was how we dealt with COVID-19 here in our district. We did things a little bit differently than most places across the state. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys for a few minutes. And then if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to try to answer those. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. Once the governor started closing the schools and businesses in our area and across the state, a lot of difficult decisions had to be made. The first question, which was obvious to us, was how do we balance our staff safety, the client safety, and still be able to provide public safety? And that was a difficult question. We looked at a lot of ways how to do this. Ultimately, the decision that I made with the help of my management team is we decided to leave our doors open. We didn't close our offices. We had staff report to work every day. We set forth strict guidelines, which obviously included social distancing, don't come to work if you're sick, taking temperatures, washing hands when you enter the building, when you leave. We placed the hand sanitizers in many locations as possible. We posted the guidelines throughout our buildings. We evaluated our staff, which were in the high risk category, and they were afforded the opportunity to telework if they chose to do so. Eventually, we stopped all face-to-face contacts with our clients and substituted those for basically phone contacts with their individuals, trying to do case planning, whatever they could over the phone. That was about the best solution I think that any of us could come up with for the time. I did not suspend operations of my high-risk unit, the unit that deals with the most difficult clients that we have. So they were continuing to operate under modified levels. Our facility operations, we stopped furloughs. We didn't allow job seeking. We reduced our capacity as quickly as possible to have space for quarantine if needed. Of course, impose strict guidelines for the clients and the staff at those places. Spent a large amount of time, like everybody else did, collaborating with other agencies, central office, the other district directors, a lot of meetings with my management team, continuing to plan and evaluate our operations. I think that the collaborating, working together to tackle this pandemic was huge and helpful. And the support that we received from IPI and central office, especially with the PPE, was huge. I mean, I don't think we would have had the ability to access the hand sanitizer, the masks, the gowns, the disposable masks, thermometers, all those things that we needed and we needed fast without their help. So I can't thank Beth and everybody else enough, because that was huge. That was huge for me. And I really, really appreciated that. So that's kind of how we handled it up until in late April, when the governor came out and started to open things back up. We continued to evaluate. Fortunately, our districts in Southwest Iowa were not impacted at the level of most of the regions throughout the state. So I made the decision that I was going to, and not use the word reopen, but start going into a phased system of getting back to normal operations. So effective May 1st, we started seeing clients back in the office. I allowed for our level 3, 4, and 5 of field officers to start seeing those individuals in the office, but we had set up designated areas where they had protective glass in between them, or they could meet with them outside or in the lobby area. They were not allowed to come back into the office area. We resumed drug and alcohol testing. We set our contact standards for face-to-face at 50%, so they could still do a majority of the case planning stuff over the phone, but still have eyes on these individuals. We started doing our DNA collecting again. May 18th, I allowed small treatment groups to start back up. And really, we're just keeping that number at like 6 or 7. We can keep plenty of spacing. We're using the proper PPE. We also installed large televisions in 2 of our conference rooms to allow for individuals to call in, and we could continue treatment groups via teleconferencing in order to reach as many of our clients as we could. We are now currently working on a phase 2 and slowly move into allowing our ones and twos to be supervised and come into the office, and also open up things a little bit further. Some of the things and steps that we took and are continue to take is I purchased new chairs for our lobby area. We had really old cloth chairs that just were not good. You could get a lot of bacteria in there, and you just couldn't clean them properly. So we purchased vinyl chairs for the lobby. I've purchased good view facial recognition thermometers, which will hopefully be here in a couple weeks, that will be placed in all of our facilities and our lobbies for obvious reasons. These things will actually detect if an individual is wearing a mask or not, and they'll tell them. They can give them directions, put your mask on. If they have a temperature, they'll tell them to go outside and contact your PO. We bought a portable disinfectant so we can more easily treat for bacteria and spray down our office areas, our common areas, our facilities. We have disposable masks in about every location that you can think of for clients and for staff. Trying to think if there's anything else that I think, as far as like protective equipment, things like that we purchased, that's kind of where we're at with that. I think our teleconferencing equipment that we purchased is going to be huge, being able to reach out to a lot of individuals and really mitigate the number of people that we have coming into the office. With that, I would be glad to answer any questions that you guys might have. I know that was a lot in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to get in as much information as I could for you folks.
Yeah, Kip, Larry Coogee, I just, how did that all work for you? Did you have any COVID cases amongst your staff or the people that your clientele at all, or not?
No, we've had 0 positive cases in our facilities. We've had 0 staff that have tested positive. And I believe in our field operations, which we have around 2,900 individuals, I believe that we've had 3 reported positives, but they have not been in our facilities. So we've been very, very, very fortunate.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Kip, for your presentation. And again, thank you for your hard work. Next up is Dr. Beth Skinner, the director, for a director's update.
Yes, thank you, Rick. And thank you, Kip, for presenting today. Really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing over there. So again, we know that you guys were working hard to mitigate the spread of COVID and have been very successful. So kudos to you and your team, Kip. That's awesome. Rick, I'd like to respectfully request that we could put the thank you to IPI workers ahead of the director's update due to that some of these IPI employees are live streaming this. Would that be okay with you?
Oh, sure. Let's do that.
Okay. Cord?
Hi, members of the board and everyone tuning in. There are a lot of participants. That's great to see. So we do have an action item here based on what happened at the last meeting when Director Dan Clark gave you an update on all of IPI's efforts to produce that vital PPE and hand sanitizer basically across all of our correctional facilities. And the board members made it very clear that they want to try to recognize both the incarcerated folks and the staff of IPI for all their efforts. And so in order to try to kind of capture what the board was discussing and requested at the last meeting, what we have done is created 2 documents. One focused towards the incarcerated workers that can be placed in their file and handed to them, but that way it always stays with them. And also something for the IPI staff members. So 2 different tracks here. And I worked with Dan Clark to develop these 2 assets. And what I'd like to do is, for those of you in the public that haven't got to kind of hear about these or see these yet, maybe have the board member, Rick, if you're able to read it, great, or a different board member read the letter that was drafted that goes to IPI staff. And then we can also display on the Zoom call the certificate that was created that goes to the incarcerated workers that helped produce the PPE throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So to start, Joanna is right now displaying on the Zoom call the letter towards IPI staff. Rick, would you be able to read that, or would you like to ask another board member to read that?
I can't, with my expertise with Zoom, I'd probably hang up on you. So if someone else could read it, or if you could read it, that would be fine.
I'm happy to, but as it is coming from the board, I would like, if it would be possible, if another board member is able to see right now what the letter says and wanted to read it, just pop in and take it.
Rick, this is Mary. I can read it if you want me to.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, it says, June 5th, 2020, we write to you on behalf of the Iowa Board of Corrections. At our last board meeting, IPI Director Clark gave a thorough presentation on the work that IPI has done in producing PPE for thousands of frontline workers around the state. The sheer quantity and quality of the products you have contributed to producing is nothing short of amazing. We were informed of the tens of thousands of products you have helped create, such as gowns, face masks, face shields, and hand sanitizer. The essential workers that have and will use these products are able to do their jobs a little easier and more safely thanks to your efforts. The effects of COVID-19 on our state have been felt by everyone that lives and works here, and that includes all of you working in IPI. Thanks to your efforts, Iowans that have been serving on the front lines in such areas, public safety, hospitals, the Veterans Home, long-term care facilities, and more have been able to wear the vital equipment necessary to do their jobs. Throughout the process, you have demonstrated your leadership in providing training, guidance, and supervision to your workers. You've responded with urgency, cleverness, and flexibility as you and those you supervise have adapted to the situation. The importance of your work is truly impressive. There have been many news stories covering this work you and the incarcerated workers have been doing, but as a board, we wanted to extend our personal thanks and appreciation for your efforts. By helping provide this equipment, you have not only helped those serving on the front lines against our common enemy, but you have also progressed the cause of second chances for those currently incarcerated. Again, we thank you for your efforts in the time of crisis and extend our best wishes in the future. The Iowa Board of Corrections, Rick Lemire, Board Chair.
Thanks for reading that, Mary, and very well done. And what I was thinking as for the action item, if the board feels it's appropriate, is we'd also review the certificate now, and then the board could vote on both of those items together, the certificate for the incarcerated workers and the letter to go to the IPI staff together. We're pulling up the certificate now, having a little bit of a formatting issue with the word. There, it's coming along. So that should, yeah, everybody should be able to see that now. This is what the certificate would look like. And for signatures on both of these, we will get Rick's signature as the chair of the board, and they'll always have that. So this is what the certificate would look like for the incarcerated workers that helped out in producing the PPE. So with that, I will just leave it to you, Rick, to entertain any motions to approve these as the assets that we would, deliver and have discussion and so forth.
Yes, thank you. And we'd all received that. We're able to review it prior to the meeting. So I really appreciate the help in providing all the information for us. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the letter and the certificate.
This is Larry. I so move.
Do we have a second?
This is Lisa. I'll second.
All those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, both items are approved. Thank you so much. Okay, Beth, you want to go with your update, and then you'll probably go right into the COVID-19 issue?
Yes, sir. I'm going to go ahead and just, you kind of put them both together.
There you go.
Good morning, board members. Great to see some of your faces. Glad that Larry is still in the tropics. Good to see that he's still vacationing. And I'm with you, Rick. I'm pretty excited. Hopefully next month we'll actually be able to meet in person. That would be wonderful to be able to see everyone again in person. And hopefully next month we'll start talking a little bit less about COVID and more about other operational stuff. But the main focus of my comments and statements today will be around what we're doing around COVID-19. As you know, it's still around, still in our prisons. And so I just wanted to kind of walk you through some of the things we talked about last time and then some updates. So really what we have been doing is we've been focusing on 4 areas, and that's basically to mitigate the impact of the virus and spread in our prisons and our CBCs, reducing the prison population so when we do have spread, we can move people around and be able to quarantine people. We also have been, IPI still continues to work with SEOC and the relevant entities with PPE. However, we'll be going back to normal operations July 1st, but the products will still be available through IPI. And the final piece, and kind of what Kip was kind of referring to, is that we're going to move into a recovery phase. And what I mean by that is that we will continue to mitigate and monitor COVID-19 throughout our prisons and CBCs, but we need to start pivoting on our operations towards some of our core priorities of the systems and some operations, so pulling some things off the back burner. We continue to, we have updates on our website around COVID-19. Incident Command still meets about 3 times a week. We meet once with the district directors and 3 times with the wardens. I also wanted to just give you some data points around COVID cases in our prisons. So we have a total of 30 positives, and these are at IMCC. These are positive inmates. We have 7, we had 7 positives this week at IMCC, and this is because we have opened up admissions, and I'll talk about that in a second, and that has come from a jail. So we're up to 30 positives. We have 7 staff positives, 11 have recovered, and we have tested 1,521 inmates to date. As of today, we still have, we've canceled volunteer activities. We have canceled visitation. We continue to give 4 free O-mails per week, a free 5-minute phone call per week, video visitation to help out so people can stay connected with their loved ones. We're still screening employees and contractors when they enter our facilities. We are still screening every inmate coming in through intake and placing them into quarantine for 14 days. We started taking admissions at ICIW on May 13th and admissions at IMCC on May 22nd. To date, we have 156 admissions. We are working very closely with the jails, Sheriff's Association. We've developed very stringent guidelines for the jails to bring people back to ICIW and IMCC, and we work very closely with our docs have done a wonderful job along with Ken Pierce and Bill and Public Health. So it's been a great partnership collaboration there. So for example, I will share with you, so a jail has to actually test an inmate before they transport and provide that documentation before we'll receive that individual. The test must be negative, and we ask a series of questions related to COVID-19 exposure as well before anyone even comes into our prisons on an intake. Once the inmate arrives, they are quarantined for 14 days on the same unit with the same cellmate. They are tested again at day 7, day 14, and just prior to transfer. The individual is also quarantined for 7 days at the receiving facility and tested again prior to entering the general population. So as you can tell, we have very stringent guidelines, and we're going to do everything we can to mitigate any kind of spread across facilities. Some other data points I want to share with you is what we've been doing around reducing the population of prisons. Today, our count is 7,617. Since March 1st, we've had 1,105 parolees released and 263 released to work release. The prison count is down. We've been historically around March 1st, we were 22% over capacity. Now we are 10% over capacity. So we have had a 12% reduction in our prison population. Again, we continue to work very closely with the Board of Parole. I just had a meeting with them yesterday talking about what what our strategies are moving forward, thanking them for all their hard work. So we continue to have that partnership with the board. It's been great. Helen and Andy's leadership has been outstanding there. And so some data points for the Board of Parole as well. Since March 1st, the Board of Parole has reviewed 3,502 cases, and 1,753 have resulted in a release decision. Again, we're working together with the Board of Parole on a day-by-day basis. Currently, we have 492 approved for release that are still in our prisons but are approved for release. That's 492. And the last piece I want to talk about is kind of this recovery phase. This is an important phase I think we need to start kind of, like I said, pivoting our operations. We'll continue to be, disciplined and make sure that we are mitigating and doing all, following the guidance around COVID-19, to make sure we don't have continued spread throughout our prisons. But we're going to start shifting back to some normal operations. So we're going to start having our department head meetings again, starting in the middle of June. We formed a recovery advisory group. They will be making recommendations around opening up visitation, work crews, volunteer services, and other activities. So the goal is to get some recommendations from that group in the next couple weeks. We're going to reevaluate in July and August when to bring central office staff back. Most of us are still working from home. And so we're going to kind of watch that and evaluate that as time goes on. We believe that, the work, everyone's been very productive and very engaged during this time from working from home. So there really is no issue with that at this time. And again, we are going to slowly bring back some of our initiatives off the back burners and focusing on our core strategies and focus areas for the department. And of course, we're going to balance that with the ongoing COVID-19 mitigation. So that's my updates for today. I know a lot. Any questions for me? I know it's a lot of information.
Well, Beth, I don't hear any questions. Keep up the good work, and thank you for everything you've been doing during this crisis. And if it's okay with you, you will move on to the next portion of our presentation here today, religion in prison. And we have two presenters today.
Good morning. This is William Hill from the Iowa Attorney General's office, and I'm here today just to give you some general background information as to religion within the Iowa Department of Corrections, and specifically as it relates to our chaplains and our consultants. I know that there were some questions that were raised, basically kind of just what do we do and why do we do it? And so that's why I'm here today to kind of talk with everybody about that. And I want to step back for just a second and kind of give you the big background, because I know that the issue that we have to at least be aware of is the separation of church and state. And of course, we have to separate church and state, and there's a line that has to be drawn. But here in Iowa, there are a couple guideposts that guide what the Department of Corrections can do. One of those guideposts is a case called Ruud versus Ray, and we're not going to get into studying cases all the time, but I wanted to let you know that it was out there, and I know that Larry in particular will find it interesting. But there was a case back in 1976 where there was a challenge to the ability of the state of Iowa to pay chaplains at correctional facilities, and the question was whether or not that was a violation of church and state, and that issue went to the Iowa Supreme Court, and the court held that it was not a violation of the church and state requirements for the prison to hire chaplains. So that's kind of one guidepost we have, and we're going to talk more about what they can do here in just a second. The other guidepost that we have is a few years later, back in about 2005 or so, Iowa started the IFI program out at Newton, in which there was some state expenditures of funds on a program that was in part religious based. I mean, it was a good program, it was a good idea, everything else, but there was a question of entanglement. And it went to trial and went to appeal to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And the court in that particular case said that the arrangement whereby the state paid this religious group to provide these release services to offenders was an entanglement and violated the Establishment Clause. So I gave you those two cases as kind of a guidepost to give you that Iowa has been pretty active in kind of determining where that line is between the separation of church and state. And I don't want to turn today's presentation into a law school lecture, so I have an easier way to think about it. And the easier way to think about it, especially with regard to chaplains, is that they wear two hats. One hat that a chaplain at a prison wears is that they're basically a religious coordinator. They run the chapel, they coordinate all the volunteers, they get community resources, and they perform what I call basic chaplaincy functions. They talk to people in distress. They talk to them about their problems, not in a specific religious sense, but in a general, they want to help people type of situation. So that is the one hat that they wear, and that's the hat that the state of Iowa pays for when we pay for their services, is to do those basic functions. And I think that's one of your attachments has a real good kind of explanation of this in terms of what they do in kind of the expectations in terms of percentages of time. Now, most of our chaplains, though, they're all devout people and do a great job, but they also have another hat. And that is usually they're from a specific faith. And they also can wear a hat of that specific faith and minister to their own flock, so to speak, people of their religious persuasion. The state of Iowa doesn't pay for that role necessarily. We just pay for their role being the religious coordinator. But they're all devout people. And so they also, as a part of their mission while they're there, they perform basically volunteer services to minister to the people of their own faith. So that's kind of the role of the chaplains. They have those two basic hats, basically that general chaplaincy and that religious coordinator. Now, the question that was raised was more with regard to consultants, and consultants are kind of the same way with regards to them wearing two hats. Here in Iowa, we currently have two consultants. We have Iman Taha Tawil, who represents the Muslim faith, and we also have Judy Morrison, who helps with the Native Americans. In the past, we've also had a Jewish consultant, Yossi Jacobson from the Des Moines area. We don't currently have him, but he's been with us in the past. The question is, why do we have these consultants? And the easy answer is, based upon the number of folks we have in prison, we have a larger number of Native Americans and a larger number of people of the Muslim faith. And so there's the extent of demand that guides us, as well as these are groups that the prison doesn't always know a whole lot about. I mean, this is not necessarily in the common knowledge as to what the traditions are of the Muslim faith, what they are of the Native American faith. And so we've hired these consultants who, like the chaplains, kind of wear these two hats. The one hat they do is they tell us institution-wide at all the different institutions what we need to do to implement the aspects of their faith at each particular institution. Now, they also wear another hat, and they are a religious leader, and they minister to the people of their own faith. And but we basically, the state pays them for their role in terms of being a consultant to tell us, hey, what do we need to do? When do we need to do it? Things like that. And so that's what the the difference between the chaplains and the consultants are, they're basically the same thing. The consultants, though, mainly are the faith specific in there for all the Department of Corrections, not just at an individual institution. I have dealt with both of our current consultants for years. They're very, very good. They're devout. They do a great job. They're a great resource. And I understand that today's presentation is mainly informational, so you can know about how this happens. But I wanted to talk about why they are such an important resource in terms of the Department of Corrections operations, because a lot of questions do arise with regards to certain groups in terms of what they want. And this is kind of, the Department of Corrections has litigation with regards to offenders and with regards to religious issues. But there can be a lot of questions. And for example, there can be questions in both the Native American faith and in the Muslim faith, as well as other religions, about who in fact can be a member, because religions are not always an open group where they allow everybody to come in. And there may be questions as to who is and who is not a member. And so certainly the consultants and then the individual chaplains who may represent a specific faith may tell us those answers. And so we appreciate their assistance, because if they act in such a role, they're acting in a religious fashion, not necessarily in a state fashion. And so we rely upon them for their religious advice, as well as we get questions quite often, not necessarily about specific traditions in regards to a religious faith, but with regards to what extra things are required to practice their faith. That is, a lot of our experience with regard to the religious issues, the lawsuits, deal with issues not associated with the faith itself, about what they believe or don't believe in. It's about the extra stuff associated with the faith. For example, is there a food tradition? In most of the religions, there seems to be issues with regards to food. Do they need a specialized diet? Do they need specialized clothing? Do they need prayer rugs? Do they need hats? Do they need that type of thing? So that tends to be where our litigation is. And these consultants are particularly valuable when sorting through those issues. Certainly I rely upon them quite a bit, and our office does. So I think it's money well spent. Both consultants do an incredible job, as do our chaplains. They're no doubt, and when we consider about all the efforts of the Department of Corrections, I think one of the core things that can happen is to have religion serve as a focus for offenders to improve their lives and to serve as that rehabilitative motivation for them to do well. So that is basically kind of how the general religious system works. I know that at each institution, they have a core number. Aside from the chaplain, they have any number of religious volunteers who come into the prison once COVID gets resolved, but they all do a great job, and we're certainly appreciative and supportive of them. I did want to defer to Ken to kind of fill in any details, to explain anything else that happens more at the operational level, and then maybe we can open it up for questions about what else goes on with regards to religion. So Ken?
Sure. Thanks, William. I just wanted to share, mainly the contact and coordination standards that we have in place. Both of these individuals visit all of our prisons every month. They're always available to all of our chaplains and to incarcerated individuals at each institution. They're constantly working with them and coordinating lots and lots of efforts with these two religious groups. We have lots of coordination with all of our religious groups, but with the Native American and Muslim groups, there tends to be more. And then there's lots of federal standards, and there's lots of property concerns and who can touch property, and with Native American feathers and with the Muslim rugs, and both of those individuals are such an asset to the Department of Corrections and all the institution chaplains and the work that they do. And I'll open it up to more of your questions. I want to spend more time on that for you guys today, that William and I can help you with.
Well, seeing how I brought this up last month, I just want to clarify. So there's 2 religions that we actually pay for, right?
For
Well,
consulting?
Yes, two currently with a consultant. In the past, we've also had a Jewish consultant, but not anymore.
Okay, is there any reason why we don't pay the other ones, or
Well,
do you know?
why we don't pay, for example, we can get volunteers. Let's say it's a traditional Protestant faith. We can get volunteers from the community to help. And remember, we're trying to separate their 2 hats. And so we pay a chaplain, but we pay him for those chaplaincy services. We don't pay them to be a minister of their own flock. And officially, we don't pay Imam Twill or Judy Morrison for their religious services. We pay them for their consultations primarily to us to say, hey, what do we need to do here? Now, these are all devout people, and so they will voluntarily put on their second hat and minister to their own folks. But that's the reason why we don't do it to everybody. And I think it's also the extent of demand, because there are a larger number of Muslims in Native Americans, and also because I would say our general, unfamiliarity in the nature of their practices. We just don't know enough about them, when certain aspects start of their holidays, what needs to be done to ensure that their religious needs are met.
Okay, so this has been going on for a number of years, correct?
Yes. We've had, for as long as I can remember, we've had a Native American consultant, we've had a Muslim consultant. So, and the system has worked out very well. I will tell you this, it's for both of those individuals, I've dealt with them quite often. It is a difficult job because there's always seems to be a little bit of a rub between, that I can observe between offenders and the consultants as to the requirements of the faith and what the offender wants to do and what the consultant thinks is religiously required. The 2 sides don't always agree, and so sometimes when they don't agree, then it becomes a fight or a lawsuit, and our office will get involved, and when we get involved, our involvement is representing the consultant because they gave us the advice, and the wardens who provide the religious services. And so we will represent the consultant and the prison staff, but we don't represent them. And we always separate to say that if the offender is suing because he doesn't like the religious decision, we say that's a religious decision which can't be brought up in federal court. That's got to be resolved between the individual and their religious leader. So there's kind of a weird line to be drawn because offenders can't sue because they don't like a religious decision. That the federal court has nothing to do with that.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the information. And I guess my angle coming from it is, every year about this time, we're going to be crunching numbers and looking at ways to save money. As we talked about, we're supposed to be the good shepherds of the public's money. And I'm just wondering, if we've been doing this for so long, we should have learned all the requirements and any of the issues that they need. Is there any way that we could get them maybe to volunteer their services so we could use that money for other purposes? And again, I'm just throwing that out for discussion. And the final thing that I have to say is, we should be, when we're going over this budget every year, we should know that this is what we're paying. We're paying primarily a correctional officer's salary for a year, and it's never been brought out in all the years I've been going through the budget. So if we could make it known so people know that, hey, we're spending X number of dollars for 2 religions and we're saving money by not spending any money on other religions, at least so we have people know. And that's the thing I'm coming from. And I guess that's about all I have to say on the issue.
This is Mary, and I guess I just have a question about equity in the fact that we need to be providing support for the religious and spiritual needs of our clients. However, where's the equity in there? Like, for the number of years that this has been happening, then someone should have been taking ownership and learning about these religions. I guess that's just my concern about that.
Yeah, this is Larry. I got a quick question, Bill, and it kind of goes along with Mary and the questions asked by Mary and Rick. And what, as far as you sent us an attachment that shows a bunch of different chaplains at the various institutions. And I'm wondering, and you sent us copies of the contracts with the consultants, but we don't have any idea what dollars are involved with the rest of these chaplains. And can somebody give us an idea what we're talking about there? Because you got quite a laundry list of people that fill that chaplaincy role, and how much money is involved there, I guess.
And Ken, you might have to help me with the numbers for those different chaplains.
The chaplain salary is right around $60,000 a year, I believe, but let me double check here quick.
And Larry, if we could pull that data for you and get that information to you since we don't have it on hand. I'm looking over at Steve too as well.
My primary question, I guess, Beth, is because we are paying chaplains, and I guess I'm taking it that they are being paid if it's $60,000, that's a pretty significant amount and comparable with what we're paying the consultants, if that's the figure. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because it isn't like we're not paying chaplains, we are paying them. So it's not everything is on a volunteer basis, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes, that was my question too, is the equity in it. Like, if the chaplains are volunteering for providing the same service that the consultants are doing, I guess the understanding, Mr. Hill, was that you were saying that for the basic services, as a religious coordinator, they're paid for those services, and the consultants, coordinating, providing information, we're paying them for those services. So I just wanted to, have an idea of what the equity is in this. So having those numbers as to, what we're paying the chaplains and what we're paying the consultants. That's supposed to be I think they're the spiritual leaders.
Well, we pay the chaplains, and they're primarily, my experience is that they're like an 8 to 5 type person. And so during their 8 to 5 shift, they're there monitoring. They're like for lack of a better word, a librarian who sits in the library and helps the offenders, that get the materials they need, lets in the different people, because our services come at all different times. Now, during an hour of that period of time, they may hold their own particular service or after their time, but then they also serve when other people of other faiths come in. That person doesn't come in to do any coordination. They just come in to do their volunteer service. So with regards to the volunteers, we don't pay for their religious aspect of providing ministry. The same way we don't pay for the chaplain for their hour of performing a religious service. So there's a distinction there. I know it's a little narrow, but the chaplain is more like that, just for for lack of a better word, the person who's on duty there, who opens up the chapel, who hands out the Bibles or religious materials, who sets up the schedule, who does what needs to be done in the chapel itself. And so with regards to the consultants, I understand kind of one of the previous questions, haven't we learned about what's required by now in terms of their faith? And the easy answer is no, because the inmate population changes and inmates will come in with different ideas and say, hey, I want to do this. And the consultant will tell us, no, that's not part of their faith. And so then we have to go between those two sides. And so there's no question when the dates of the religious event are every year, we can get that. But there are always kind of questions in dealing with the offender population in terms of the requirements. And so that's the distinction between the two.
Rick, also, and Larry, I just, Katrina gave me a little bit of a history here. We used to have a statewide religious coordinator here at central office, but that position was cut at one point. I don't know when that was. And so that's when we brought on the consultants, because we did have a statewide coordinator. Then that position got cut, and then we moved to contractors or consultants. So just a little history there.
Well, good. Well, thank you. I'm very appreciative that we've, we're kind of looking into this and we're kind of learning from it because we've all been in the dark about this for a long time. Maybe we can continue the next meeting. We can actually get the numbers, what we're paying each consultant or each religious thing. That way, when we're preparing our budget for the upcoming period of time, we can either make some adjustments or whatever, so we can make a more accurate decision when we're preparing our budget. And again, this is a learning experience for us, and maybe we can have the figures by next meeting and discuss it further. But again, I appreciate for the update and kind of pointing us in the direction of why we're doing what we're doing.
And this is Mary. I think that would be helpful, and what also would be helpful, to make that comparison of you have consultants, and then you're saying there was a statewide religious position that was cut. If you have a job description somewhere in regards to that, so we could see what the essential functions of that position was and how that compares or relates to, what we currently have, as we're looking at, the budget and looking at positions. So.
To both Rick and Mary's point, we'll get some numbers for you next time, and we'll pull out that old job description. We'll find it, and we'll pull that out for you guys so you can take a look at it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Thank you for the discussion.
Very much, and thank you for Bill and Ken for the information that they provided. If there's no more questions about this topic,
I do have a quick question, Rick. Could you also provide us with I assume this somewhere, as far as the breakdown in numbers, as far as religions, percentages that are out there, as far as Native Americans and
Muslims.
There's a significant number. I'd like to hear what the percentages are as far as if that's available out there. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's protected. I don't know, but.
We do have a record of what we identify when they come into reception, or what religious background they want to be a part of. So we do record that, but there's a lot of individuals that will change from week to week, or will change what group they may want to affiliate with. So it's very fluid, but we definitely have data as far as who comes in the door, what they may identify as.
Okay. Well, if we can have that, that would be great, Ken.
And it sounds to me from what Ken's saying, Larry, is that would probably be a snapshot in time, based on how fluid it is and how people change, week to week, month to month. So, but we can certainly try to extract that information for you for our
Well,
next
just
meeting.
gives a general idea, at least at some point in time, what the numbers are. And I understand that people change, and I understand that there are a variety of religions under our population numbers. So I understand all that, but I just like to be curious. I'm curious as to kind of generally what are we looking at here at some point in time.
Yep, we can do that, Larry. Not a problem.
Director, this is Mark. Do we have at any point in time outside organizations that do present to the department for any type of support in our correction facilities? I know there's a lot of national organizations that do a lot of good work in the prison population for getting offenders ready for release. And I'm just curious as if being made to you, or how would someone from the outside that has a program go about getting that instituted?
Well, usually what we do, and Ken, you can chime in here too, is Katrina Carter, who is our assistant deputy in treatment programs. Usually those types of organizations or agencies are screened through her, and then she works directly with the prisons. And sometimes they approach the prisons directly, and then the prisons will get in touch with central office and talk to us about those various organizations and what they want to do. So we get a lot of community support, especially around our volunteer services. But
Sure.
Katrina works really directly with the wardens on that. Is there anything you want to add, Ken, to that, or did I miss anything?
We get contacted a lot, and we do bring individuals and groups in. With Brothers of Blue is probably one of the bigger ones that comes into our institutions. But we have a lot of religious organizations that will do just one-time things, and some are repeat events for all of our institutions. And we have a process in place where we do background checks, and all of their equipment and everything has to be evaluated before we would allow them to enter into our facility. But with and I'm not kidding when I say there's hundreds. We have hundreds of volunteers at each prison for religious groups. It's a very high number, and they all go through PREA training. They all go through volunteer training. A lot of that is web-based training that we provide for all of our volunteers that come in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, this kind of rolls right into our next part of the meeting, the budget updates by Steve, the fiscal manager.
Sure. Thank you, Rick. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis of where we're at today, and then also, kind of as we're navigating with the REC meeting and such, what that means to us and what we know and what we don't know at this point in time. For the current fiscal year, FY20, I did provide some handouts. I won't necessarily, reference those specifically. We are in pretty good shape. We do have a couple concerns that we're navigating currently as far as moving some money from sites to sites. One of those areas is our pharmacy budget, and the second is kind of an unknown with the county confinement. That is one that we're keeping our eye on. Due to stopping the admissions into prison, we had more people that were, sitting in those jail beds that we have to pay for by code. So that is one of those areas that we're looking at. We're going to make sure that we submit to all federal programs that we have available to us, whether that be FEMA or the CARES Act funding, to make sure that we're made whole and can make budget. We have submitted also a grant application with the Burn JAG grant at this point in time, and we identified 4 areas for that grant. One was IPI reimbursement for their PPE production and their costs associated with the staffing as such. The second would be a VPN expansion, getting our more users able to use those telecommute options and continue to do their jobs at a high level. Right now, we're having to share some of those connections to get more licenses. The third is a housing voucher program, which would allow some of those difficult to place people or incarcerated individuals in our prisons that are looking to transitional housing, possibly speed up that process, provide some type of voucher for rent assistance for a period of 60 to 90 days, and hopefully, once again, speed up that time period of getting them out. And then the fourth is providing data dashboards to really analyze all of our things, and a lot of this is specific to COVID-19 as far as PPE availability, COVID spread, and being able to analyze and really predict some of those things that we're going to see. So really putting that on the forefront, giving us some more tools to be able to do an even better job of analyzing those things rather than paper and pen. So that is one of those things that's in the mix. Like I said, for this fiscal year, I think we're in pretty good shape. We did experience some revenue loss in the CBCs specifically with lowering of those residential bed counts. So that's one of those things that will impact in the current year, but then also move forward into the future year as well. So we're identifying that and making sure that everyone is aware of that. But as far as FY20, I think we're sitting pretty good. Wanted to move into the REC conference document that was provided as well. And once again, I'm just not going to give specifics. There was between the current year and the prediction for next year, as you've probably seen in the paper, there was about a $65 million decrease in those numbers. The legislature at this point in time is identifying how to handle that, and will give us guidance as to what our appropriations are going to look like. The bigger piece for that is the estimate that was used in March versus now the estimate that they have to use in May is actually a $360 million decrease. So that is the new number that the legislature has to appropriate from. We are not sure at this point in time, what's going to be done with reserve funds to possibly, bridge that gap for a year. Usage of the federal monies, the CARES Act funding will also probably be a piece of that. But at this point in time, just wanted to kind of give you what the REC came out with, and then as far as what we know, we don't really know. They're making those decisions over the next couple of weeks. As we're asked for information, we'll of course provide that information and any impacts of any potential cuts. We're not aware of any cuts at this point in time. We're just pushing forward as we know and as we get that information. Our hope is, based on what we've seen so far and the health of the economy right now, we know it is rebounding somewhat. It is going to be over time, though. We're hoping that we possibly can get a status quo budget. That is really what we're aiming for at this point in time. And then once again, if we can get some help from some of those other sources to bridge the gap of some of our salary increases and those types of things, health insurance increases, that would get us through this next year. So really, we're playing it by ear at this point in time, and really evaluating any information that we get from the legislature or the governor's office, and piecing it together and like I said, answering those questions as they come up. So not definitive answers, but we don't have definitive answers at this point in time. So I wanted to let you know where we're at this point in time. Any questions or?
Yeah, this is Larry. I got a couple of questions, and Beth will probably smile at these, but Beth, you mentioned that our population is going down right now. And my recollection, and it could be way off, but it costs us something like 30-some thousand a year to house a offender, or whatever we call them now. I'm sorry. And do we reduce our overall expense? Can I take $30-some thousand a year, if that's a figure, or whatever the figure is, times, let's say 500 less in population?
There's something going on with my eyes, so just, I don't want you to get.
No, you're okay.
Get anything.
So we did the reading in those, we got the sunglasses, and then we have.
Hey,
I gotta figure out getting these.
Ellie, I think you need a mute. I'm sorry, Larry.
Yeah. But anyway, can I take, it does, I guess, and does our bottom line get reduced by if our population is reduced? Is that a significant impact budgetary wise for our operational costs? Is there, or is it the fact that most of our stuff is is employee driven and institutional driven? The fact that we reduce our population doesn't reduce our expenses all that much? Can somebody enlighten me on that?
Sure, Larry, that's a great question. We've actually had a lot of conversation about that. What I haven't shared with you all, there's probably 200 plus people just waiting in jails to come back. And we know that we're going to have people that are we're going to have a push back into our system. So our population will go back up. We also know there's, since the courts have held off jury trials and things like that, we know there's going to be a lot more people that are going to probably be pushed through in the next few months. So as it's low, at the lowest there have been in a decade, what we know is that we have 200 and some waiting, and we have a lot of people waiting for trials. Our population will go back up, unfortunately. Maybe not to the 8,500, 8,400, but we'll see some significant increases in the next few months.
Okay, and then I'm assuming, Steve, there's a, oh, I lost it. Oh, here it is. What goes into equipment non-inventory, line 503? Because I see that expense is what, 2.72. Is that the COVID response? Is that what's driving that number?
Some of that would be the COVID response. Some of that is equipment, such as typically the 503 line is anything that's not inventoriable. So it has to be over $5,000 and have a useful life of a period of time. So a lot of those expenses, such as those thermometer, thermo imaging types of things that Kip talked about earlier, those types of devices would be under that $5,000 threshold and would fit into that. So there would be some of that that would be COVID response. And we would be seeking FEMA reimbursement for those costs. So we should be seeing some money come back that's going to replace those expenses.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Steve, for your presentation. And let's see, we covered the IPI workers. We have a period of time here for public comments. If there's anyone that would like, from the general public that would like to make a comment, now is your time. Okay, let's move to the next topic, this open discussion by board members. Anyone have anything to say?
Beth, do you have any input as far as the current work situation at Oakdale?
I'm sorry, Larry, I didn't hear your whole question. Can you please repeat that?
Do you have any comment concerning the current situation as far as warden goes at Oakdale?
Yes, we have right now, we have Randy Gibbs is the interim warden at the IMCC prison. Chris Tripp is stepping up on the deputy warden position at ISP, and I believe, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, we have posted the warden position at IMCC. So we're looking to fill that pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Mary, and I'd like to thank Beth, you and the staff for the responsiveness in managing the COVID-19 situation in the institution and protecting the staff as well as our clients. So just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts in handling that.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. It's truly been a team effort. We have some great leaders in this organization and the best staff, I think, in the country. So couldn't do it without them. So thank you so much for your kind words.
Hey, this is Bill. So I found my mute button. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, Bill.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, we have posted the warden's position. Actually, the resumes are being submitted, and today is the last day for that. So we will be scheduling interviews. Larry, I know you've participated in the past. Is there any chance we could come your way and coordinate on interviews? Or?
Yeah, I'm available, I think, depending on timing.
So.
And Mary took was part of that last time too. I don't know if she went.
Yes, I'd like to participate. That was
Okay, so we'll be reaching out. I would really like to get this sorted out, and hopefully maybe at our next meeting, we can be talking about a new warden. It's a little premature maybe, but that would be my goal. So I will reach out then with you, to you folks, and we'll get things moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Anyone else have anything to say? Okay.
I have nothing, Rick.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess it's that time where we adjourn the meeting. I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
This Mark, so moved.
That sounded like a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of ending the meeting, say aye.
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 Again, the meeting is now adjourned. Look forward to seeing you, and hopefully we'll all meet next month in Fort Madison. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone be well.
Rick,
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Safe trip to Indiana.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.